Hello, my name's Kevin Graham and welcome to your Wednesday Celtic State of Mind bulletin. Today, as usual on the Wednesday, I'm joined by John Hughes Jr. and hopefully this bulletin will last more than 44 days. John, this partnership will last longer than 44 days. How are you today, John?
Yeah, all good, mate, all good. Obviously, like everyone else, I think just as far as the football goes, frustrated and disappointed. Yourself?
Aye, I'm a wee bit bemused, John. I keep on getting adverts for the skull shaver. Anytime I switch on my phone and switch on like the internet, I keep on getting adverts for this Pitbull skull shaver. Right, I know I'm going a wee bit thin, and I know I've got a bit of a sunroof and that, but I'm no vain and something like that. And it's the same when I go to my barber. My wee Turkish barber guy keeps on telling me that his brother can sort out my bald patch for 500 quid if I go to Turkey and meet his brother, eh? And look, Mr. Advertiser, I'm no paranoid. I'm no vain. I'm paranoid. I'm no vain. I'm paranoid, eh? So you're barking up the wrong tree with this Pitbull skull shaver, man. But I just seem to be getting it every time I switch on anything and I have a look at anything, John, eh? And it's getting me really, really paranoid. My algorithms.
That took an unexpected turn.
Aye, my algorithm, man, is getting me a bit worried. I think it's trying to make me vain and like wear hats all the time, but I didn't really care. But I suppose we better talk about the football because that's what everybody's here for on this Wednesday afternoon. It was another Valium European night at Celtic Park, where we decided not to ride the moneyed unicorn and actually win a game. That's us out of the Champions League for another season, the first season that we've been there in 5 years. Last night was the last chance saloon of giving us any hope of keeping our passports out their wallets for after the new year. That went. We're winless. We're no potless. The accountants will be happy. The amount of money that we've raked in. Those who like spreadsheets will be over the moon when they actually see the money and the prize money rolling in. But I don't like spreadsheets. I like goals. I like winning games. I like performances. My gut feeling last night and still my gut feeling this morning is the two games against Shakhtar. I'm just going to look at the two games against Shakhtar are a chance missed. I think we were unaggressive last night for long periods. I don't think we've done enough to win the game last night. But there's a reason. I mean, I think we're a better team in Shakhtar. I do think we're a better side in Shakhtar. But they've got Mudryk. They've got a 60 million pound player. We haven't. If Kyogo was worth 60 million, we would be in Europe this morning in North Shakhtar Donetsk. Shakhtar were basically 10 traffic cones in Mudryk. I think we're a better side than them, but Mudryk made all the difference in the head-to-head for the battle for the Europa League. It's a kind of case. It's a kind of case of so near and yet so far. So near because the performances were all right, but so far because facts are facts. We've only got 2 points and haven't won a game.
Well, Kev, just on that point about Mudryk, and I believe, a few weeks ago in the first game, somebody on a podcast somewhere went on and on and on and on about Mudryk and the importance of nullifying him, the importance of closing him down, and the importance of actually just sacrificing men to put on him. Because, as you said, they're essentially, Mudryk and 10 traffic or 10 ones outfield. But, I said that the last time, I said it before the game this time, as soon as I saw the lineup, I said that lineup is brave and bears no relation to what their threats are. And we'd already seen that Mudryk has Juranovic on toast. We saw that last time. We saw it again last night. So asking the man to defend him again on his own, basically, was always going to end in the same result. And I'm confused as to why that's not taken into account. I thought that selection was incredibly optimistic. I thought it was absolutely reliant on pinning them back overwhelming them, basically. And I don't think we had seen enough evidence to suggest that we could do that. And I definitely think we had seen plenty of evidence that Mudryk had to be nullified, even at the cost of two other guys, because the rest of our guys. I find that incredibly frustrating. I understand Ange has a philosophy, and he would find the very notion of man marking a man unsophisticated. But they have one guy. They have one player who's top notch. He's world class. You can't ignore the only world class player on the pitch. You can't just play your game and pretend. If it was Messi, we would have left him. You can't just play your game and pretend he's not there. He is there, and he's going to hurt you. If you don't think that's the case, then, whether we beat the rest of them, then your man, Secan, come on and answered the question, can Secan? And no, he can't, with the worst miss in human history. I think that pretty much sums up where we would have been otherwise. So I'm tremendously frustrated and annoyed. And don't get me wrong, I am taking what positives I can from it, but I'm not going to deny the fact that I'm really, really disappointed and really annoyed. And we should have done better in this group. I appreciate there's progress, of sorts, but we should have done better in this group. We are unlikely to get a big group in future. And even if we improve this year, so will the opposition. Shakhtar were incredibly depleted, pulled off some phenomenal results, and fair play to them. But we should have done better in this group. We should, after Christmas, we should have taken the result in Shakhtar. And I mean, they were essentially playing for a point last night. I'll let you get a word in, Kev, because I'm still a bit disappointed. I have to say.
You're still. I'm disappointed as well, but I completely disagree with what you're actually saying there. Even though I say Mudryk, even though I did say that Mudryk is the reason that we're not sitting in Europe this morning, we've also got to look at, if you look at that team last night, I reckon that team done its job really, really well last night. And it was a nothing game. Must admit, it was probably our poorest performance I've seen in Europe, especially at home at Europe this season. I didn't think we'd done enough to win the game, but I can't say that he got the team wrong. I can't sit here and go like that. No, he got his tactics wrong. We went in at half time, 1-0 up.
And should have lost 2-1.
Well, it could have been 2 each if Mante had gonads. Do you know what I mean? If Kyogo...
No. We should have lost 2-1.
Aye, but then...
But that Secan chance wasn't just a chance, Kev. That was the worst miss you'll ever see. That wasn't the Kyogo chance.
You never saw my miss and Colsnotton.
Missed an open goal.
You never saw my... You never saw my miss in Colsnotton Public Park in 1996, Matt. That was far worse than that boys last night. It's quite difficult to nullify. It's quite difficult to nullify a top class player. You look at Shakhtar's tactics all through this game, all through the 2 games against us, and all through this Champions League group. They knew that Mudryk was they knew Mudryk was their top man, and their tactics were: we sit back and we're going to knock it long to him. I think in the whole we handed them. We did handle him okay, and I can't see, and I disagree with that. They actually got the team wrong, and I do think it. I don't think we would have man-marked Messi as well. I don't think we would have man-marked anybody that's a top-class player. It's not the way Ange Postecoglou is going to do it, and long may that continue. I would rather beat teams on the front foot, and I think that, are we there? No, we need improvements all over the pitch before we can actually get there, and that's some of the comments that are actually coming in as well. We need to see improvement in the players. We need to see improvement, especially in the finishing. And I think that's the main thing that comes out. I mean, one of the worst stats And they tried to pass it off as a great start last night on BT Sport, was we've had 68 attempts at goal and we've only scored 3. I think that shows you where our problem is. It's no stopping Mudryk.
Yeah, well, I think it's both of those things, to be fair. And I agree with what big Johan Malby said, or Mialby even, I don't know. That was, I just said.
Good tan, the big Johan, eh? He had a decent big tan, the big fella.
Yeah, and he was saying you have to be able to keep clean sheets, and that is true. We do have to be able, and if you're going to go down this route where we're going to outscore them, then you've got to take your chances. But again, I go back to that point. So if you look at their chances again, the first one they missed was when Mudryk was tackled with CCV. I think got him just outside the box, and the ball goes through to Traore, who crosses it, and the boy should have put it in the net. Joe Hart had a save from Mudryk. Mudryk scores a worldie. Mudryk sets up the next one. So we're going to have to agree to differ on this one, Kev, because I just don't think it's good enough that you completely ignore the early threat. And I mean, how much would it have cost to, put Maeda on him, sacrifice him? What would we lose there? And just have him sitting deep and, giving some cover to Juranovic. What would we lose there in attack? What would that cost us? I think there has to be some degree. I mean, I love Ange's style, but there has to be some degree of reality. There has to be some degree of practicality. You don't want, things in life that are a great idea in theory, much like communism. Do you know what I mean? Great in theory, but doesn't work in practice. Do you know what I mean? So, and you also don't want to be like the last Japanese man in the jungle fighting a war that you've lost 20 years before. There are things that are great in theory, but you have to apply a dose of realism, and we've seen this before with the likes of Rodgers. Ange is a great coach. Don't get me wrong, I'm not slying him at all. He's a great coach. But there has to be a degree of pragmatism. It cannot be just this one ideology and that's it. It cannot be just that and nothing else, regardless of circumstances. You can't just ignore the real world.
I don't think he's ignoring the real world. I think this talk of pragmatism is the way that we've been brought up over the last 10 years with our board saying that we can't compete. And I think folk have got this idea that we're going to accept mediocrity, and we're not going to accept mediocrity. What Ange Postecoglou is trying to say is we're going to play a certain way. If we play that way well enough, then whoever's in the other team's not going to matter. And that's the way I want to see us play football. And I think Johan Mialby came from a very pragmatic Celtic coaching team in Europe. And he came for the Martin O'Neill coaching team in Europe as well. Martin O'Neill and Johan's talking about clean sheets. That's fine, fair enough when you've got big Johan, Bobo Baldi and all of that, eh? But they are the greatest Celtic European team I've seen yet, and I'm going to emphasise the yet in that. But difference was they had a world-class striker. They had a world-class striker who could score on any level whatsoever. If we had a world-class striker, we're still in Europe. We're probably sitting second in that group this morning if we had a world-class striker. As I say, I didn't see too many problems in trying to nullify being more pragmatic. I think the problem lies further up the pitch. And that's where Ange Postecoglou has got to actually sort it. I'm going to bar talk of pragmatism because I don't think it suits the Celtic DNA. John?
Well, I would agree with you. I would agree with you if you're playing Real and you're playing Leipzig. I would agree with you because there's no point trying to nullify any. You're either going total or digging in. That's it. Because they have too many good players. But Shakhtar have one player of any note. One player who's going to help you. That's all I'm saying. It really annoys me that we can't do more than just ignore them basically and hope our system is the best. They've got one guy, right? So this isn't Real, it isn't Leipzig. They don't have a front line worth 90 million. Who are all coming at you. You're wasting your time trying to deal with that. You just have to play your own game. But in this occasion and in the previous occasion in Shakhtar, in Poland, I take the same view, and I'm not going to change my mind on it because essentially they have one guy, and all we have to do is nullify them. It gives us a 90% chance of winning the game. So it's not like Real, it's not like anyone else, and that's what I'm talking about when I talk about a dose of reality or a dose of pragmatism. I'm not talking about digging in or abandoning Ange ball, or abandoning the way that we play. I'm just saying there's one man, and I said it before the last game, I said it before this game, both times have proved to be correct. So look, he's a sensational player.
You've proved to be correct, and I'm not going to deny that, but I think I'm also proved to be correct that it wouldn't have mattered if we had a world-class forward. I think that stands to scrutiny. I think that stands to scrutiny really, really well. The discussion that we're having, John's actually gone on in the comments as well. I mean, it's the same discussion. It's gone on in the comments. Seamus Duffy. Hiya, Seamus. It's quite clear to me, to play the way Ange wants to play in the Champions League, we need serious investment. It's not happening. Will McMillan, Ange may not change his philosophy, but he needs to find 3 or 4 upgrades to the team. Something we didn't really do in the last window. And Brian Walsh, I think this was the one I meant to bring up. The reason Ange's philosophy will need to change in Europe is because Europe is a different game. You can't play the same tactics and make the same triple substitution after 62 minutes and beat good sides. What do you think of their comments, John?
Yeah, look, I mean, I want to be positive. I think we're on the right path. But I mean, I think, if Ange is not going to, either the manager has to adapt or the players need to be better. And there are issues with that going forward. We will be reliant on him being able to coach these players to a much higher level because we can't spend the money. And if we are spending money, it's because we've just sold one of our best players. So there are issues with that. However, on a positive, we are playing, relatively good football. We controlled that game for large parts. And the reality is, as you say, Kev, Mudryk made the difference. He was the difference. But you also have to remember Shakhtar side are massively depleted. That Shakhtar side are missing at least 60 million quid's worth of talent, right? Because they were all allowed to go because of that UEFA decree. So the Shakhtar side that has been qualifying for the last 5 years in the Champions League is not this side. So I don't think we are going to play a weaker pot 3 team in the near future. Because the Shakhtar side that qualified worked better than this one that we're playing. They have one good player. They had half a dozen good players before. They had at least 3 or 4 who were absolutely top class, worth 50 to 60 million. Right. And we've not got that. We are not. The reality is we failed to get over the line, again against a team that was very, very depleted. So that's the reality. Now, we can take from that, we can interpret from that, what we wish in terms of positive or negative. The reality is they were a much depleted side, and I expected us to do much better against them. The fact that we haven't is something we now need to deal with, but I was hoping, and not with my supporters hat on. I like to think I'm self-reflective when I've got my supporters hat on, and you're just hoping beyond hope for a result. Or you're able to, and as well, you're able to look at it objectively and analyse the situation. Objectively, I thought we would do much better in this group, not with a supporters hat on, not some wild hope beyond hope. I thought we should do much better, and I stick to that. I think we should have done better. But sometimes you've just got to accept the fact you maybe misjudged it, because, Shakhtar, even depleted, have pulled off some phenomenal results. They've had some lucky breaks in terms of the timing, the Leipzig and stuff like that. But they nearly pulled it off against Milan as well. Not Milan, sorry, Madrid.
Mm-hmm.
They're not a bad side, but they're still, probably the easiest side we'll play at this sort of level. So we have some serious work to do.
We do, and I'm not denying it. When the draw was made, I had a look at Shakhtar, and I went, look, that's probably one of the pot-free choices that you would have took. You would have took Shakhtar Donetsk. My view going into this, that progress was taking 4 points off Shakhtar Donetsk. That would show that we're moving in the right direction. When that never happened, and I can't polish that up to be any sort of matter. We are out of Europe with a whimper, really, and we can take all the performance on board and that all we want. The lack of experience in the Champions League, which has to be factored in, but as what you say rings true, that that was probably the poorest Shakhtar side that we could have faced, right? And we weren't good enough to beat them over 2 games. I still think we're the better side. I still think we've got a better squad of players in them, but we haven't got a world changer, as in the guy who's got a haircut that would even offend Ryan Kent, never mind anybody else. I don't know. See, like his play acting in that last night. He actually deserves to sign for West Ham and get a bit of Moyes ball or something like that. He deserves a £60 million move to West Ham and struggle and end up going to like the second division in France or something like that. Same with our coach. I mean, right? I know we're all meant to feel sorry for him, but their coach looks like a guy that you order for a catalogue to manage your under 13 side. I mean, page 132, 42.99, a blow-up Klopp. That's what he looked like. And he's jumping about that touchline at Celtic Park as if he's won the bloody lottery, man. I'm fed up of that as well. I'm fed up of no-mark managers coming to Celtic Park and getting results. The guy against Copenhagen, I'm sure he had boot-cut jeans on and a pair of shoes. And we shouldn't be getting beat off managers that look like that. That's why guys like Scott Parker and Frank Lampard will never be decent managers, man, because they look like utter bams, basically, on the touchline. Right, I've went down a rabbit hole there. But no, I agree with you. I think we should have been like 4 points for Shakhtar for me would have been progress. But again, I think we're just back to square one where we were last season. We can actually go results-wise. When you look at the cold, hard facts, which are going to be in the history books for hundreds and hundreds of years until I'm no here, the cold, hard facts are we were out of Europe with a game to spare and we never won again. No, look, we could go to Madrid next week and win. Well, I'm going to Madrid. We could go to the Bernabeu next week and win, but the way the results have went, that's looking very, very unlikely. I don't think we've progressed as a side in Europe from the Bodo Glimt game, but there is signs of positivity there that we're learning in Europe. And I think the biggest thing, the clearest thing that we've actually seen over the last 5 Champions League games is we need a top-class striker. And I think that's been proven.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's true, but when was the last time we had the money to buy a striker? What class are you talking? Because I mean, what was it? Ayeti was like 5.5, 6 million, wasn't he? And look how he turned out. The problem is, we were lucky to get Giakoumakis because I think before they get relegated, they were looking million. So we were lucky to get Giakoumakis, and for me, Giakoumakis played pretty well last night. Actually, there was quite a few things. I mean, the ball he won back in midfield and then, smashed it about 35 yards and forced the goal. So the thing I like about him, he's got some dig about him, for a big man, and he's not scared to put himself about. So, I thought he played quite well. It was interesting, the actual breakdown, the setup of it, essentially, it was a 4-4-2. or it was closer to a 4-2-2-2 or 4-2-2-1-1 because Kyogo was playing behind Jackie Marcus. Kyogo, for all intents and purposes, in midfield. And I actually thought he did quite well. I know people were saying, he offered us nothing and all the rest of it. I thought his link-up play at certain points was very good. Obviously he missed that chance, but you could see what he tried to do on the replay. At the time, it looked like he just sclaffed it at the goalie, but you could see he was actually trying to put it through his legs, and it was on target to go through his legs, but he didn't connect properly with the shot. So the goalie, it was a comfortable save for him in the end, and as we know, his finishing's greater. But then you look at the likes of. So where can we make changes? Where can we get better? So first of all, we're missing, Jota, McGregor, Starfelt, get guys who two of them anyway would have made a difference. Are we ever going to be in a position where our squad is deep enough and strong enough that we can survive those kind of losses? It's very difficult. If you look at it last night, it was the small things that made the difference. In our play, we were in control of the game for large parts. Until of course we started tiring and getting to the. I was going through my notes, and I looked in the first half. I can see this starting as emerged in all these games. We were pressing them hard, we were pressing them high. It was great. We weren't getting the final result though, and you can't sustain that. So there's going to be space opens up late in the second half, as always happens, and that's what happened. So, in my view, that's sort of disappointing. But at the same time, some of our play was very good, but there was so much. It was like O'Reilly ended up with man of the match, UEFA man of the match, and I thought, what he did was very, very good, and the other 50% was really wasteful. Losing possession, all the rest of it. I thought Hatate was as erratic as Hatate always is. The problem with Hatate losing possession as often as he does is maybe it doesn't matter some squad, but it really matters in Europe. When you keep losing possession like that. So. That's sort of frustrating, but we can't be without him because he's a phenomenal talent, and he plays some incredible balls. But losing possession like that, in Europe is a real problem because it puts us in the back foot. Juranovic had a hard night again because your man had him on toast. I thought Haksabanovic was really pretty good for the most part in open play. Terrible set pieces.
But look, pal, if
set pieces, they were dreadful.
Look, John, if Haksabanovic was my waiter last night, I wouldn't have gave him a tip because his service was utterly terrible, man, for the whole thing. And it didn't help when we brought on Turnbull either. It didn't help when we brought on Moy. We didn't swing on a decent cross all night. And it's frustrating. It was more frustrating last night because I reckon we had a decent chance of getting a result against that Shakhtar side. And I think a lot of folk are thinking we're being arrogant against that Shakhtar side. But as you say, there's reasons why we should have been confident if we were progressing as a side that we should have been taking at least 4 points off that Shakhtar side. For the reasons that you've quite eloquently actually says. Beach Boys comes in. Kevin, rather than just say we're learning, explain how you think we're learning. We got caught in the counter-attack in the first, second, third and fifth games. So where have we learned? I think when you look at our Europa League games last season and you look at the Europa League, you look at the Champions League games this season, there has been elements where we've completely controlled and played our football. And there's been elements as well that we haven't done so well. And I'm hopefully, you're talking about Hatate. I think he's one of the main examples. Hatate loses the ball quite often because he takes a risk. He'll try and play that risky pass. And I noticed that last night there was one point where he didn't play the risky pass and the whole crowd got on his back. When he didn't play a forward pass, when he maybe should have done played a forward pass. Where I think we're actually learning, I think we're also learning as a club of the standard that we actually need to be at to compete at that level. It's okay saying that the 2 points doesn't reflect their performances over the 5 games. But the matter of fact is, as Paddy Lavery says, it's a result. And that's what gets shown. And I think as a club, and I think as Ange Postecoglou's learning as a manager. Now, Ange Postecoglou could have learned after the 3rd game and went, I can't play the way I want to play with these group of players. I'm going to park the bus. He didn't. And I think that's how we can say that we're learning, because these players are playing the exact same way week in, week out. And they know, and Ange knows what's needed and what we need to do to actually learn in Europe. So there's not going to be like too much learning, because you've got the same group of players. So they're basically learning on the tools. They are learning on the tools in these 6 games. What you're learning has to do, without a complete and utter change of tactics, is when you get them back into pre-season next year, hopefully as champions, you go, right, you lads, you have had a year in the Champions League. You know what we need to actually do now. You know they need to step up. That's where I think that we're actually learning.
Well, if you believe in what Ange says, sort of trust the process. The process isn't just about the style of football. The process is about identifying those players that are coachable to a higher level, identifying where your weaknesses are, and doing something about that. So that's part of the process, and a necessary part. But we have some real problems in trying to compete at this level. There's no question of that. Again, if we're going to buy expensive players, we need to sell someone for a lot of money. That's just a fact, because otherwise we need to remain financially viable. Otherwise, if you don't take those sort of steps, you could end up being the kind of club that gets to a Europa final and then the next year gets pumped off flat bike tyre. So that's where we need to be paying attention, because essentially, for all that we are frustrated, the reality is the club needs to be financially viable. So if we're going to buy a really expensive striker, we're going to have to sell somebody for a lot of money. Either that, or we're going to coach these people into a better position. We're going to coach these players into a better position. When you're looking at it, they are relatively young, although Shakhtar was so you would hope that there's improvement on that. You see the likes of Greg Taylor, who I thought was man of the match last night. I didn't think it was O'Reilly at all. I thought Taylor gave a bit of a masterclass, as a matter of fact. I thought he was superb. Makes a bit of a fool out of me, because in the Motherwell game, I thought Bernabei had a sensational game, and I suggested that if he keeps that up, then Taylor's going to be second choice fairly. And then following week, Bernabei plays like he's never kicked a ball before, and you're having to make that substitution. So I thought Taylor was tremendous. But you've seen the hope that we have is we've seen in our own squad the likes of the way Ralston, the way that Taylor has progressed. And we have to hope that same progress can be achieved with some of the rest of these players. We have to hope there's a core group of them who can improve to a significant degree. And we know it can be done, because we've seen it. There's 2 examples, right? So we know it can be done. And they are learning, and we haven't been at this level for 5 years. The manager has a valid point. It's a massive step up, despite the fact what I said about Shakhtar and they're the weakest pot 3 team that we're playing. They're still significantly better than, for instance, a lot of the teams in the Europa League. So it is a massive step up. So the positives are, look, we've had the experience. That's pretty much the only positive from my point of view. We've had the experience in a field camp. What are you going to do? You're just going to lie down, accept that, and cry about it? No, you've got to get prepared for the next time, improve, make the changes where they need to be made. Again, but one of the systemic problems we face is the level of opposition is so poor, usually in relation to these kind of teams, that it's very difficult to prepare these guys very difficult to make that step up. Now, we've always had that issue, to be fair, so it's not new, but it's one of the problems that we've always faced. So, again, from a positive viewpoint, we were not, absolutely pummeled as some other teams have been. But I don't think that's a particularly high. I've been competitive in these games to a large degree, and we've lost out. We've seen now, for instance, but I mean, again, the guy that made the point earlier, where have we learned? Because, the same way we have played, and the relentless energy, it looks brilliant, and it is brilliant as long as you can score 2 or 3 in the first half. But when you can't, you're always going to fade in the end. You can't sustain that level, and our bench isn't deep enough or strong enough to bring things on who are going to keep that going. I mean, the only substitution I was happy to see last night was Forrest for Abada. So again, we just don't have the bench. So there's quite a lot on. At the end of the day, look, we just have to suck it up. We are where we are. It's not a great position. It's not been a great campaign. We've learned a lot. We've enjoyed some things along the way. Some of our players have hopefully learned a lot. And the Ange, as a coach, is a bit of a genius as well as a manager. Because that's what we're going to need going forward, Kev.
We are going to need that going forward. Jay McKelvey comes in. Honestly, Kevin, what have we learned? I've learned that we're not good enough at that level, and some of the guys that we thought were maybe up to that level have still got some work to go, and that is just the cold, hard facts and reality of that. And that's me no slagging the players. There's reasons for that, and I'm big enough and ugly enough to know the reasons for that, but that's what we've learned over the last 5 games. That's what we've learned. DJ of choice comes in, John, and I'm going to leave you this question because my phone's just went off and started playing music in the background for some particular reason, and I need to go and switch it off. But the DJ of choice comes in and goes, the reality is we need millions and millions and millions to quote a poet. That was me. So this of investment into this team to compete at this level. John, as you rightly say, we haven't got millions and millions and millions to actually plough into this team. But which players in that team can you see improving to a Champions League level as I disappear and switch off my phone?
Yeah, no, that's an interesting point, Kev. I mean, I think Haksabanovic, excuse me, looks a very good player. Taylor looks like he's a good player. O'Reilly, it depends where you're playing him. O'Reilly is a quality player, and the UEFA Observer obviously thought he was man of the match last night. I worry about his dynamism at the top level. He's more than good enough for the SPFL. Hatate needs to cut out. You're saying that he was losing the ball a lot to try to make risky passes, but he loses the ball a lot. Just makes. He's very, very erratic. Juranovic and Ralston, well, I mean, I'm not going to blame Juranovic for that last night. I don't think he's been particularly great in this tournament. I think he's good enough for us at this level, but he does get exposed a lot because of the way that we play, and it's difficult to blame him for that. I don't think Ralston would improve that position because, if you think Mudryk had Juranovic, then I think he'd leave big Anthony for dead. But and again, if you even look at the worldy goal that your man scored, Juranovic's backs off him right to the edge of the box, and then Carter Vickers makes half a challenge, but Hatate should have dug in there, and Hatate instead does like a downward dog yoga pose. I don't know what he was doing, trying to block the ball rather than get his. We do have a lot of times where we let guys play balls that we shouldn't be letting them play, and I think I heard someone point out the fact that both of their central defenders and the guy that screens the defence, was it Steppenwolf or something like that, they all took yellow cards last night. they all put the dig in when they had to. And we are a bit, we're lacking in a degree of cynicism. And I think Callum McGregor could have helped us there. Do lack, that recognising where danger lies and stopping it any way you can. I know that's not our focus. We're focused on our own game, but defensively speaking, again, most teams have a bit of cynical dig about them, where necessary. So where can we make improvements? Technically, we can make improvements all over the place. So it just depends where the money is going to be. We have to, honestly, fingers crossed that Kyogo comes back onto a game, because what a loss he will be if he ends up fading away. He looks like such a good player, but again, at this level, even when he was playing well, and last year, even when he was playing well, he needed 4 chances to take one, or at least 3 chances to take one. He needs a lot of chances, Kyogo. But again, I mean, you can't fault. The one thing I would say is, you can't have team worked. There was a huge amount of graft there last night. They were still grafting in the final minutes. They worked incredibly hard. So for me, the work ethic is there. That's at least one thing. But I don't think Abada, if you're playing him in a 4-4-2, he's not the man at all. And in fact, it was when Maeda came on, he actually made a difference. And look, at this level is, it's just not even a discussion. He's fit. He's decent enough when you give him loads of space. He's a very good player, brilliant pass, all the rest of it. And as I've said many times before, if you give him time and space, but you don't get time and space in these games, and you don't get multiple options, and you aren't able to pick a pass. You have to be fast, you have to be athletic, you have to be decisive, you have to be quick, and not just athletically quick, but quick of thought. Again, but look, the guy's 31 and he's on his way down. Like, he was only brought into, if McGregor was fit, we wouldn't have seen him. So we've got, and there's the issue to the squad not being great. But look, we can make changes all across the board. The reality is we can't afford to make those changes, en masse. So we have to rely on identify the guys he doesn't think are coachable to the level that we need them to be at. It's as simple as that. We're totally reliant on Ange to do that. He says trust the process. That includes trusting him to identify those guys, and hopefully we get rid of them and we improve in that respect. But again, there's no magic wand here, and we are looking at incremental success. We're not looking at suddenly, Ange is going to fix everything in the off season. That's not going to happen. So Again, because we hadn't been in for 5 years, and because we had a new team and we didn't know what to expect, perhaps our own expectations were too high. I don't think they were. I think Shakhtar were there for the taking, so I'm really disappointed in that. But as for the rest of them, the Leipzigs and the Madrid, we're not competitive for those teams. So, at the end of the day, we didn't win the games that we should have won. We didn't, and that's very disappointing. But look, it is what it is. And, as I say, you can put 5 years without, being here at all. And here we are doing our best. Our best hasn't been good enough. So we move on, we try and improve. And that's really our only option. So there's no point in slating. The players gave their all. So there's no point in slating the players. There's no point in slating the manager. The manager, we knew what his tactics were before we come into this. I disagree with them, obviously, as I said, in this particular game. Not in the rest of the particular game. And, again, as we've seen before, you might try and park the bus and you end up getting beat 7-1. So how do you want to play? What sort of club do you want to be? we are not at this yet, and we need to get there. So that is a process, and there's a lot of work to be done, and hopefully we trust the manager and trust that he can do it.
Help if I switched off the mute button there.
I was
Kevin Malley comes in. We're not smart enough either, but he agrees with the street smart stuff that you mentioned about Callum McGregor, John. Nothing wrong with fouling to break up counter-attacks, but we didn't do it too nice. I mean, I think CCV tried to actually kick Mudryk to the London Road, and he utterly missed. So I think there's a bit of street smart coming in there. Sanchetto makes a decent point here, and I've seen quite a few folk in the comments saying we've been a bit negative, John, after saying that we're showing a bit of entitled arrogance, saying that we should have bet Shakhtar, a pot 3 team and a team that's got loads of Champions League experience, but this is not the Shakhtar, for reasons that we all know, this is not the Shakhtar that we could have faced. And Shanchetto comes in and says, it should be noted that the Shakhtar have been in the CL group stages 17 times since its start in 2001. So fully understand what's required in a group stage CL. You're talking about a club who knows that they're going to guarantee Champions League football virtually every season because of the money that they've actually got in that Ukrainian league, even though they're 2 points behind Dnipro at the current moment in time with a game in hand. They're more than likely to win that Ukrainian league. So the fact is, I had 9 guys that come through their youth academy who are all of Champions League level, because that is the level Shakhtar want to compete at. And even then, when we say Champions League level, I don't think they've troubled the last 16 for a number of years. They're just a jobbing Champions League team that are there every year, and every so often will get actually quite decent results and sell players for millions and millions and millions of pounds. But I still think we should have took 4 points off them at least. That would have been a sign of progress under Ange Postecoglou. And I don't think it's a sign of arrogance, me actually saying that. I don't think it's arrogance that I'm extremely disappointed that we didn't take 4 points off it. And even after watching the 180 minutes against them, I don't think it's arrogance to say, by the way, we should have done far better in the 2 games. I don't think it is with what I've actually seen in my own eyes.
It's not, Kev, and I don't think, I'm not sure if people are listening or understanding what we're saying here. This is not Shakhtar that even qualified from last year. So to quote their historic record is irrelevant. It's completely irrelevant. They were decimated this year. I don't know what's hard to understand about that. They were absolutely decimated. They've lost a huge number of players. They've definitely only players, pretty much. So, to suggest that, we're being negative because, Shakhtar have done this and Shakhtar have done that, it doesn't matter what Shakhtar have done. They're not the same team they were last year. So this, and if we had been, devastated in the same way, I don't know. I don't like to think where we would be. So they have done incredibly well, but with Ukrainian players, almost entirely. So, to suggest that we should have just conceded the fact that we're going to lose to them because they're a pot 3 team, I don't accept that, because you're not really paying attention to what's happening. So they're not the same team that qualified. They're not the same team that got to pot 3. So at the end of the day, I'm sorry if people think that's, if that's what they're saying in the comments. I don't look at the comments, but if that's what they're saying in the comments, I don't agree. And, we should have done better. But, at the end of the day, the difference was a world-class player. In fact, the only world-class player on the pitch. And, it's a sore one. And I'm incredibly disappointed. I'm trying not to be negative, but the positives out of this are relatively few and far between, because it does just expose where we are and how much work we have to do. I prefer to think positively about it. I prefer to think, look, we now have a real understanding, but we can't look back at that and say, oh, it was all great, because it wasn't. And we failed in our primary mission, which was basically we wanted European football after Christmas. I would have loved us to get into Europa. I think that's where we could really judge where we are. So I'm really disappointed about that. And I'm afraid, again, if anyone listens to this, we frequently take criticism for being overly positive. And, I accept that. I try and be, because I want to be positive about my team. I want to be positive about where we're going, what the future is, where we stand at the moment. There's no point in, just being a negative person. There's a reality as well. You can't improve something if you don't accept where you are. So you have to first accept there's a problem and what the problems are before you can sort them out. So there's no point in burying our heads in the sand, and saying everything's hunky-dory, because,
in another way, John, in another way, we are not being negative, being disappointed for the exact point that I'm going to bring up here. I mean, there's folk in the comments calling us uneducated nitwits and stuff like that, and telling folk to go and listen to other podcasts. On you go. There's plenty of other stuff out there. I'm not interested if you think I'm an uneducated nitwit. My wife thinks I'm an uneducated nitwit. I'm used to getting called that. Craig, but in the way, your disappointment is positive. And do you want to know why? Craig M hits it on the head here. They beat Leipzig 4-0 and drew 1-1 with Real, mate. They might not be the same team, but they're pretty good. Kenny Beaton, very patronising pod today, lads. We didn't mean to be. They drew with Real, did we? We have no divine right to beat anyone. I'll take you back, Kenny, to Craig M's. Over the 180 minutes I saw against Shakhtar, we were a match for them. And that's why I'm disappointed that we didn't do better against them. I'm not saying, yes, we're not good enough for this level yet, but we were good against a decent side who have got decent results in the Champions League. And we're disappointed that we didn't get 4 points against them at least. And I think that's a positive thing. It's shown that we're aiming for the stars but missing. That we're actually see. It's not a case of we have a divine right to go into the Champions League and win, because we have not, and that's been proven time and time again. But over the 180 minutes, Shakhtar were nothing to fear. And we competed with them. We never got beat off them. They've got decent results. They've beat Leipzig. They've drew Real Madrid. And I'm disappointed that we didn't beat them twice. Maybe that shows you in a roundabout way how I feel about my team. That I feel my team is of a decent level, but can do better.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't accept that it's patronising at all. Completely disagree with that, because what we're looking at is, before we come into this, what's the reality of the situation? What are the relative positions of all these teams? Yes, Shakhtar have pulled out some fantastic results, but nobody expected them to. And again, you could add players, and that one player certainly makes a huge difference. But in no way being patronising, we are just looking at the results. If it were the same team that came in from last year, then fine, I would accept that. But we looked at it and we thought, how are we going to do? Are people saying that we are being patronising? What were they saying when this draw was made? Right? Were they saying, oh, we're going to get pumped, there's no point? Or we can't compete with Shakhtar? Is that what they were saying? I'd like to know. Because at the end of the day, we looked at this and we had that Leipzig were so erratic, unfortunately, not when they played us, but they were so erratic back then that, there was an outside chance there. We looked at Shakhtar and what had happened to them, and we thought there was a realistic chance there. I think by saying we're being patronising to Shakhtar, you're patronising our players, because I think we are good enough to be competing with them, which is why I'm disappointed. It's not patronising to Shakhtar. And as I say, I think you've been patronising our players by making that comment. The reality is we should have to play with them. They are a very good side, but so are we on our day. We're not just, that's the point. I think we're a good side, and I think we should have been able to compete with them. So I don't accept that defeatist attitude. Oh, we're being rising. It's just nonsense. It's just defeatist.
No, and I don't think we have been patronising, saying that we were disappointed that we didn't beat a very, very good thing. The positives I had from this whole thing, the Champions League, this whole moneyed unicorn, is Matt O'Reilly. I think we've got an utter star in Matt O'Reilly. I think I can see room for development in Hatate. And Greg Taylor's been utterly fabulous in Europe this season for a guy who was much maligned at the start of the season is going to be a weak spot in Europe. I think Juranovic has had a tough gig, and the teams that we've faced, he always seems to be up against the opposition team's best player. He's done okay, but I'm not going to go back and say I could see why we got him for Legia Warsaw when we've stepped up to this level. I'm not going to change my opinion. We're a decent Europa League side. We're a fun Europa League side. We just haven't got that yet to go to the Champions League. But I'm more positive, but I can see maybe room for improvements. And when you look what Ange Postecoglou's done in the last 18 months, I'm sure that he's going to take lessons away as well. Lessons that we didn't see. Folk are in the comments saying the manager has to learn. Well, he doesn't need to learn. He maybe will learn that making the 3 substitutes in 62 minutes is doesn't work, and he has to actually change that. But he'll have to actually have a look at that as well. He's there to make the hard decisions. So his hard decisions are now thinking to January, going, right, where can I improve? And I think he'll actually look to improve up front. I do think he'll look. I think when he looks at it and he is a stats man, he'll look at all the stats and that. He'll have a go on that. The only problem that we've got is scoring goals, and I need to improve that, and that's what he'll look to do at that level.
Yeah, we'll have to do it in January because I don't think we need it for the rest of this season. So I think the board will have something to say about that. On the positive front, you look at what potential we have there. If you can imagine the sort of interplay between Taylor and Haksabanovic, if Haksabanovic is playing at the tip of that midfield, I would pay money to see that on its own, right? That could be sensational. Some very talented players there, and again, it could be a fabulous player. I mean, he was playing with MK Dons 5 minutes ago, and now he's in the Champions League winning the man of the match. Whether I agreed he was man of the match or not, but he still won it. So that says something about his development. And we have players, maybe a wee bit out of form at the moment, and that's unfortunate because we can't afford that. A club at our level can't afford that. Everyone has to be on fire, basically, for us to succeed. We can't afford to be carrying guys during the game. We did have important players out injured. I do think that, again, the manager has an ideology, but you don't want it to become dogma. With that, the manager does have to, assess his own performance as well. Any manager does. We all do that. We all have to do that in our own jobs. We're all forced to do it in our own jobs to a certain degree. So you have to assess the results you've got, the outcomes, and whether they are good enough and what your part in that was. So whether you agree with it, it's the way he's playing or what his selections are or what his substitutions are, the reality is he has to look at those results and say they weren't good enough. They're not what he's looking for. He wants a better. What does he have to change to achieve that outcome? So, again, that's a trust the process thing. But you also have to trust the manager to be self-reflective and self-analytical in that way. So, I hope that's what they take into next year. But certainly, look, it's not been great. We have a lot to look forward to domestically. We kick on, we improve, we try to get better, and hopefully everyone's learning, others are improving along the way. The manager's coaching starts to kick in along the way. It is incremental change, but it's not the change that we wanted, but it is, incremental improvement. We got to the Champions League. That's a start. We had to win a league to do that. That wasn't easy in and of itself. So hopefully the players are picking up. You're not telling me the likes of Matt O'Reilly's not learning anything from these games, and will take the opportunity to improve himself. So, look, I'm not all doom and gloom. I'm disappointed and I'm annoyed. I think if you're not, then, I don't know what to say about that, but, I think it's reasonable to be disappointed and annoyed because I had expectations. I don't think my expectations were unreasonable. They were. So, we look at it now and we say, what we're going to do, we're going to cry about it, we're just going to kick on. We just kick on. And, we try and be positive for the rest of the season.
At least I had an expectation to have won at least one game at home, and I don't think that was being over ambitious. Edward Driver, I had a laugh at this, mate. Kev, take a wee Mogadon and Camden. We are all Celtic, mate. We all have opinions. Opinions, we'll have them. Aye. If you've got any, contact me via the comments and I'll give you my address to send them on. The housewife's choice. What else we got here? Craig M. I'm going to wrap up. Craig M. We need to normalise playing in the Champions League. Abada looked terrified. This was something Matt O'Reilly says straight after the game. And he says that. He says, I think the team have still got a bit of anxiety playing at this level, going by the chances that they've missed. And he was talking about himself as well. He was actually being very he was looking very, very deep into himself. And he always looks like he's looking very, very deep into himself, does Mr. O'Reilly. And he says something. He says, if we get the chances against Motherwell, we go on. And that was his exact words. And so maybe it looks like the team now know, by the way, we need to be less anxious. And how do we get less anxious there? We get back next year. We can't have another 5-year gap before we're back in the Champions League. And I think that's something that Postecoglou's been banging on about as well. That we just can't keep on saying we're a Champions League team. We've got to be in it year after year, like Shakhtar. I think that's a ring.
Well, as I said last week. I said last week to Paul John. These guys. As in any job, experience matters. The more experienced you are in a certain situation, the more relaxed you are, the more used to it you are, the more you feel you can overcome what's in front of you, and that's in any job. If you were to step up to $100,000 a year job, or something that is way different from your normal run of the mill, the fact that you think you could smash that out the park straight away, I think they've probably been unrealistic. So our guys have to get experience. Hopefully, that's a positive, and that's what we take into next year. And regardless of all of that, I'm on the hoops.
Aye, definitely. So we've spent an hour and 3 minutes talking about Celtic. And John McGlotton comes in at dead grown up, man. I ken what that was about, John, but is it dead grown up spending my lunch hour talking about the mighty hoops, about a game of football, which really, and like, this is not something that a 46-year-old man boy should actually be doing during lunchtime on a Wednesday afternoon during his work. And the fact that there was almost 500 watching, what does that say about all your end, John, as well? But thanks for listening. Like, subscribe. Always keep it Celtic and just dinna be bams to each other. Hail, hail, and I'll see you all later.